Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Welcome back to Fuel Your Legacy. Today we have the surprise guest on that I had talked about earlier this week. Her name is Talesha Carter, and she is a woman's transformation coach, but I shouldn't say but I'm going to say it anyways, because I think the cooler thing is, and what stuck out to me is that she is I'm going to mess it up again, Miss Woman's Entrepreneur USA. That's a cool, that is an accomplishment. I mean, you think about how big the United States is. I don't know how many people participate in this competition or what it entails. We're going to get into that. But just knowing, like, when you're dealing with somebody who is the top of what they've competed in, that's exciting, because you know it takes competition, even if it's the most friendly competition, takes true grit and focus and being on point with your purpose. And that's what stuck out to me. That's why I reached out to her on Instagram and said, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast, because here we're talking about people who are building a legacy. So before we get into that, go ahead and give us a little bit more of your background, where you grew up, kind of your story, how you got to where you are, and then what are you currently doing? What's your legacy or your vision that you're promoting right now?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on here. I am from Cache Valley, Utah, and so I grew up in a small town called Hiram, but I currently live in Logan. And what got me into this was I had a traumatic experience with losing my grandma. We lived with her, and I was the one who found her, and it just flipped my world upside down. And I really struggled with anxiety and depression. And that's what got me into coaching, was because I never went and saw a therapist. It was never for me after losing her. And I had a coach, I had an emotional healer, and that's honestly what changed my life. And after experiencing that transformation in myself, I knew deep down that was my purpose, and my calling was to help other women who were struggling, maybe not necessarily with grief, but just any struggle and any battle that they had in their life. I wanted to show them that there's hope and they don't have to live the way they're living.
That's awesome. So I didn't know that. I mean, I kind of heard about it. I did check you out on the webs, right? On the interwebs. That's my job, actually. I do that 24/7.
Yes.
No, but so I kind of heard that. I didn't know you found her, though. How old were you when this happened?
Yeah, so I was 24 when it happened, and I was pregnant with my daughter at the time. So it was kind of a double whammy for me, and it was very unexpected, and it was hard. That's the simplistic way I can put it, is it was so hard for me, especially because we had lived with her, and when you live with someone and see them every day and then that happens, it changes you.
Sure. I cannot even imagine that. I don't really have a relationship with death, really, because bar my grandpa, and this sounds bad, anybody who's listening who thinks I should care about people, I'm sorry. I don't really have anybody that's been really close to me that's died outside of my grandpa. And honestly, by the time he died, he'd been bedridden for 4 or 5 years. So it's not that you want him to go, but you want him to have some peace in his life,
Yeah.
So obviously we miss him, but it's their time sometimes. So that wasn't as shocking when it happened. It was, I actually proposed to my wife the day of his funeral. I took my wife to their funeral and proposed to her that same day, and used the excuse of my grandpa dying of why I was so nervous and just out of sorts.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I did ask my grandma if he would be okay with it. And she's like, of course, there's nothing he wants more than for you to get married. And I was like, okay.
Yes. So. Yes. Absolutely. And, I was the same way. I mean, I had worked as a CNA, and so I was familiar with the passing process and, the stages that people go through. But yeah, this was a sudden, instant thing. And I had a lot of guilt and a lot of fear around it afterwards. And I mean, we continued to live in her house after she passed. And that was like the constant reminder. And it was a huge mental game for me that, you know, your brain just tricks you into believing people are there, even though they're not. And it was really hard.
That's so interesting. That was when you were pregnant with your first, correct?
My second. So I already had a little boy, and, you know, he was with me when I found her, which again added another layer to that guilt and the pain that I was going through, was because I felt so bad that I had to bring my little boy into that. You know, as a parent, you want to shield and protect your child at every cost. And here I was taking him upstairs to go see her, and we found her gone. And it tore me up inside because I never wanted my son to experience that. And luckily he was little enough, he didn't know what was going on. But, you know, we remember, our subconscious mind knows things.
Sure.
And I carried a lot of guilt for many years that I messed him up or I ruined him because I was in such a state of shock and hurt that I didn't know how to protect my own kid through that.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I see that as something that's fairly common, specifically with women, which
Yeah.
is why you're coaching who you're coaching. But it's very easy to assign ownership of things. I'm just going to call it ownership. We try and take ownership for stuff that's not ours to own.
Yes.
And as a result, it can cause a lot of anxiety, depression, multiple personality type disorders. You know, like it causes a lot of struggle in our life. What is if somebody hasn't gone through that yet, and hopefully we're catching people before they go into this, how does somebody prepare themselves, get in the right mental state so that when they do come across a situation that might happen, that they've already kind of processed on how to understand what is theirs to own and what is just stuff that happens in circumstance?
Yeah, I think it starts back at relationships, you know, because at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. And I think because I lived with my grandma and I had that closeness to her, and at that point, I didn't know anything about healing work or mindfulness. I knew therapy work because I'm in social work, but I didn't know anything, right? And so I think that if we trace it back to relationships and being able to set appropriate boundaries, it sets you up so much better to be able to handle life's hardships that come and not claiming other people's messes as your own. And so I don't know if there's ever anything that you can do to prepare for the passing of a loved one. Like, I've been through it several times. Other grandparents have passed since the initial passing of my grandma. And no matter what I did to prepare for that, it didn't make a difference. But I would say in the relationship scheme of things, if you're trying to not say this person's faults are my own, you know, it just has to come back to the relationship and the boundaries and believing in who you are so that you don't take on someone else's mess.
Sure. So you had mentioned that you'd had other people who had passed on before, and it was different for this grandma. What do you think made that difference? Is it that you were living with them? Was it that you weren't able to break it to your son gently? Like, what exactly, at what stage of this interaction or this experience did you decide that you were going to feel guilty for something?
Yeah, so I think it was because, yes, we lived with her. And so she had surgery like 6 months prior to this passing. And I had taken it upon myself to take care of her. And so I was more diligent in checking in on her and making sure she was okay. And so my mom who is her daughter, and I would relay that information onto my mom, right? And I felt responsible for taking care of her because we lived with her. And so I had that added thing in there, and where I was checking on her so constantly, I felt like I should have known, you know, I felt like I should have heard, you know, I felt like I should have recognized the signs or something was going on. And I just didn't. I had no warning signs, essentially, that something was going to happen because she was doing so well. And that was a lot of it. And then, yes, having my son be right there with me. I mean, I would never wish that on anyone. And it wasn't until I started my healing work that I even remembered that he was there with me. And so I went about a whole year before I even remembered that I had my son in my arms. And then it was a whole nother layer of guilt because he loved his grandma too. I mean, it was his great grandma, but he loved her too. They spent bath time together every night. I mean, she played with him. He could get away with anything under the sun with her. You know, they had such a close-knit bond. And so I felt so guilty that that was going to be something that his body would remember for the rest of his life, was being in that moment with me.
Yeah, sure. And so there's a few things there that I want to kind of deconstruct here. For people listening, if you go back before she started talking about her son and having her son there, when she was describing why she felt guilty, right? She had taken it upon herself to be accountable and to be responsible. Did anybody tell you that was your job or your responsibility? Or did you say, no, I love my grandma and I want to do this, right?
Yeah.
So that's,
I volunteered.
The thing is, it's such a common thing. And I'm glad you got to that point. I didn't know where that question was going to go, but I think that principle, that's something that's applicable in all areas of your life, whether you feel responsible for your children and how they're going to turn out and behave or whatever, or you feel responsible for an accident, a car accident, or you feel responsible for whatever, or you feel responsible for your kid not getting dinner on time or not getting just the right amount of sleep. I mean, there's so many things that we beat ourselves up about in life. And guys, I'm not immune to it, right? I feel responsible for not being, like, if I couldn't provide for my family or not provide the income or whatever, like that's something that I've decided I'm responsible for. Nobody else has decided that. My wife didn't wake up and be like, you better feed us today. You better go make it. No, like she never says that. It's just this thing that we self-impose our own responsibility on. And then when something doesn't work out or we have unmet expectations, so much feelings of shame and regret or guilt can come in. And I think that's the tipping point of understanding where what is yours to own and what is not yours to own. And being able to draw a line and say, you know what, that just happened. I don't have to own that. All I can control is my response to whatever happens. And that's the only thing I control.
Yeah. And something that really helped me too was this saying, you know, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And I fully, with all depths of my being, I know that if that wouldn't have happened, if my grandma had passed in a more natural way, or, you know, something where I knew that it was coming, I would never have stepped into this calling that I know I'm supposed to do on earth. And as hard as it was to lose her and to go through all of that pain, life didn't just bring that to me to make me be miserable. Like it brought it there for me so that I could step into who I am meant to be and the people that I am meant to serve and help on this earth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would go one step further, because that's still very focused on you, right? But, and you probably have thought about this, but just for other people, it didn't just happen for her son either, or the baby that's in the womb who got to experience all of the hormonal trauma that she was going through, right? That happened to everybody. But all of those experiences, the neat thing about having those types of experiences with your kids is you get the opportunity to choose how you're going to frame those experiences for your children's memory. They're going to remember it regardless, but if you choose to always talk about how tragic it was, then they're going to remember it as a tragic event. If instead you choose to remember it as this sweet event, hey, you got to be the first one to see grandma after she went to heaven, or whatever you frame your religious beliefs, right? Then now it's this engendering thing and builds a stronger bond in relationship with that kid and their ancestors. And so it's so interesting how these deep emotional experiences, we only get a few of them in our life, and how we choose to respond to those emotional experiences or frame them in our minds could literally and has altered Talesha's future, and it alters all of our future, whether we like it or not, or understand it or not.
It's absolutely 100% true. And, you know, the fun thing is my daughter was born on my grandma's birthday after she had passed. And, you know, it's like, there's no coincidences, right? And there's so much that can be learned in that. And is exactly what you were saying. It took what would have been such a hardship in our family and made it into a joyous celebration. And now every single year, we don't have to be sad anymore that she's not with us. We get to celebrate her life and my daughter's life. Like it all came down to that choice, right? And the blessings that we get to decide, and we get to have that ability to choose.
Yeah, I love that. So moving into kind of what you're doing now, now you have your own business or coaching career called Foster Vitality, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And like how did you get that started, I guess? Like what was the instigation to actually starting coaching yourself? And then how did you silence, or were there naysayers who were saying, what are you doing? Why, like, you can't do that. You don't know enough. You're not qualified. How did you, if not them, yourself, right? I know we all have our inner naysayers. How did you silence those naysayers so that you were able to become successful as you are?
Yeah. So like I was telling you earlier, like when we were just chatting, I had no intentions of ever having a business. I wanted to help people. I've always wanted to be, a therapist or like a counselor, something in that degree. So I've always had that love and that passion. But like I said, after experiencing that grief and trauma with my grandma, and then experiencing my own healing, and, that I could go from having daily anxiety attacks to not having one for almost 6 months, like that is incredible. And I knew that I needed to help other people experience that. And so I began my venture out into energy work, and I got certified as a Reiki master. And through doing that education, I was praying, and I was just asking, what's my next step? What do I do with this? Like, how do I help people? Do I just help people for free? How do I find people? All of those things that I think every coach and healer has to go through, where we're really pondering what we're going to do with the abilities that we have now. And the answer came, like, just start doing it. Just start helping people and start letting other people know what you were doing. And so that's what I did. I turned to Facebook, and I was like, hey, Facebook, I can now do this. If you're having this problem, let me help you. And then word of mouth just took over. And it kind of just spread like wildfire from there. And I've since changed. I'm not doing the energy healing anymore. I focus more on the emotional side of things for people, because I've seen so much potential in that arena rather than the energy healing side of things. And honestly, yes, I have had naysayers. I think if you're in any sort of helping position, you are always going to have those people that present the worries, or, well, did you think about this? Or, as a woman entrepreneur, I get a lot of, well, what if you're going to work with men? Like, are you scared to work with men? What if they take advantage of you? Like, all of those fears, that other people had for me that I didn't even have. And so I really had to just go with faith and just say, this is what I'm called to do. And I'm going to, of course, protect myself and set up all the safety measures. But I genuinely believe that people are good, and that we don't need to be so fearful of life. And so I kept going. I pushed through it. And every single time I had a naysayer, I'm a dedicated person. And so I just pushed past it. It was like, no, they're not going to have a say over what I'm doing to help other people. They don't get to stop this progression. And so I just kept going. Sure, I would have my tearful moments and feel like it was about me that they were attacking, but really it's just their own insecurities and their own fears. And so it's my opportunity to teach to those. And so that's where I could turn it into a teaching moment and create blog content and create video content to really help teach people how to move through those own insecurities, so that I wasn't having to carry them. And like we talked about earlier, take responsibility for someone else's fears or worries about what I'm doing.
Yeah, that is in my experience, helping other people and coaching people through things, that's the hardest part. I'm not super good at it, to be honest. Like I don't know where the happy balance is of being willing to just let people deal with their own stuff, but still care enough to try and help them through it. It's like,
it's hard.
It's hard to just say, okay, well, I'm going home, and all of your problems, hopefully they get worked out until we can talk next time, That's hard for me, but I end up just being maybe more direct than a lot of people would like, but that's how I handle it. So how does that journey mesh with becoming the Miss Woman Entrepreneur of the USA? Like, how did that even happen? What even is that competition?
Yeah, so that was a brand new competition, and I saw some other coaches that they were presenting it and offering it. Now they wanted to combine the beauty pageant arena with the business arena. And, you know, as every business woman out there, I think there's that role of masculine and femininity, and they wanted to just bring those two together where we could showcase our own talents and individuality in our businesses. And so I saw it, and it just was again, one of those things, I knew I needed to be a part of it. And I had a really cool experience. I saw it, and this is when I still had some money, energy, fears going on. You know, it was the next level for me to invest in, to do this pageant. And I was really scared because it was going to drain all of my savings that I had built up. And I was taking my dad home from a doctor's appointment because he had just had surgery on his foot. And I said, you know, Dad, this opportunity has presented itself to me. And I was just seeking fatherly advice, you know, like, what should I do? I really want to do this, but I'm scared. And what if I don't win? Then I lost all that investment and time and energy. And my nickname is TK. And he was like, TK, you got to do it. And he and my mom actually helped fund some of that pageant for me so that it wouldn't be such a burden on me. And honestly, having their support and their, you know, their financial investment in it made me that much more driven to do it and to go all in, not just like dabbing my toes in. I just jumped full force. And so for me, I knew it would create a platform for me to have professionality and then connect with other business owners and be able to help out more in my community because I had a title that could showcase my professional side.
Yeah, I just love that. I think it's it's unique. There's not
Yes.
you guys out there. I don't know when it started. Were you the first one?
I was the very first one. Yes.
First one. You never get that title again.
No, I know. I was like, I just had to go for it.
That's awesome. So, I mean, what would you say your secret weapon is? So tell us a story or focus on a specific habit, mindset, or behavior that you've used in your life to create this meaningful legacy. And then how can we adopt that into our lives and put it into practice?
Yeah, so it goes right along with what I do in my business anyway. The two just kind of molded together for me, but it's meditation and visualization. I am a consistent meditator and visualizer, and you know, a lot of people talk about manifestation. I don't know if I would classify myself as manifesting, but I'm a great visualizer. And I see something, I see a goal, and I just create it in my mind. And I just meditate on that over and over and over again. And so I would say that would be my secret weapon.
Okay. So what does that look like? What does that process look like for you? How do you construct your environment to have that with 2 kids? How do you make sure that you're not interrupted? I mean, there's a lot of things here that people want the juicy details so that they can put
Yes. You want me to give all my secrets?
I want you to give all of your secrets. We're here to add value to people's lives, not to keep secrets. This is why it's your
I totally love it. Yes, I love sharing all of those details because what works for me, I know is going to work for other people. So it is like anyone that goes or hears about meditation, they instantly go to, I have to have a completely silent place, no distractions, and I have to just sit in quiet forever and just sit, right? And I wholeheartedly believe meditation does not have to look like that. What worked for people long ago no longer works for our generation. And so break through that limitation of meditation has to look a certain way is the number one thing I did. And after doing that, it just started creating a flow in my life because I wasn't constrained to having everything be in perfect order. I'm also a recovering perfectionist, and that would hold me back every single time I tried to meditate and clear my mind because I would think, oh my gosh, my bedroom is a mess. Like I can't sit here and meditate, or my kids are screaming in the background. There's no way I can focus. And guess what? It's life. I love my children. I am not going to limit them on their playtime because mommy needs to meditate. So I would get creative with my time, right? I would wake up before them And if they would wake up before me, I would set them up with some quiet toys that they could play with, or a movie that they could watch, something like that. Or I would do it after they were in bed or during nap time. Like, there's unlimited amounts of time. And I think we constrain ourselves to, we can't wake up earlier, we can't go to bed later, any of those things that say we can't do it. And so I got creative with my time. And then from there, my environment would be, I love stones. And so I have crystal stones with me that I will hold beforehand. And I'll just picture something happy, right? I'll picture something that makes me feel so good inside. And that helps ground whatever negativities I'm facing for the day. It helps me to feel more centered in who I am and what my purpose is. And then I just think those loving thoughts that help to create an atmosphere inside of me, because I can't control everything on the outside, but I can control what's on the inside, and I can dictate how I feel and the mood that I create. So that would be another element to it. And then from there, I picture my goal, something that I want that I don't currently have. And it could be anywhere from something physical to something more mental and emotional. And so let's say it's something physical, right? Something that I visualized for a very long time was a trip to Disneyland. And I just knew that my family was going to go on this trip, and it was going to be me that was creating this for my family. And I would sit and I would picture it every single night. I would picture the rides that we would go on and the excitement on my kids' faces. I would picture the smells of Disneyland and, even like touching the sticky railings, things like that. I mean, every little detail, I would picture it in my mind. And so I like to tell people, add in all of your senses when you're meditating, and it's really going to create that visualization in your mind. And the more you connect to your senses, the more likely it is to happen, because your brain is going to believe it as a truth.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that last just section there of explaining meditation, everybody does it differently.
Yeah.
And everybody finds success in it differently. But in my experience, meditation has been one of my, specifically with emotional healing, it's been the most successful method of emotional healing that I've ever experienced. Because it allowed me to get out of myself, remove myself from all of the perceived pain or responsibility or ownership of whatever I thought I should own, and just say, well, what if I didn't own this? Like, what are all of the possibilities if what I hate right now about life wasn't happening? Right? What would be like my fairy tale land? And as you start to as I started at least, to really get into the details, as you said, like really get clear about what that is, then even when you do come back, it's like everything else, you're like, yeah, this doesn't even matter. It's like you really do create a split personality, and you're off in happy land, and you're walking through this life of terror. And then you're just like, oh, I used to react to that. I don't even care, because that's not me. I'm this other guy that plays around in his head, not this dude that's walking around, until the life of what you were playing around in your head becomes your life. And you're like, oh, that was cool. It just happened, So I love that. What role do you think, because you mentioned something briefly that you had some financial blocks, limiting beliefs. What role do you think being financially stable plays in someone's ability to focus on their legacy and create their legacy?
Well, I think it creates more safety for people. And I think it just is a very subconscious, ingrained belief that's passed down from generation to generation. But I think it does. I think it creates that level of safety in people, that if they have money, then therefore they can be okay in life. And totally not true, but it's just something that I think we hold on to.
So how do you help somebody who doesn't necessarily feel confident in their financial situation, because maybe they don't have money, maybe they're not in a situation that would look on the outside that they should feel confident? How do you help them still chase their legacy and recognize that the way to get more money and to gain that financial security is actually to live in alignment and fulfill your legacy first and add the value, and then the financial value will come back?
Yeah, I take it back to my basic thing is that your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings create your actions, and your actions create your results. And so if I can always take it back to what are the original thoughts and the feelings that you're experiencing, that's going to create a different result in your life. And so usually when a problem arises, it has nothing to do with what we think it has to do with. It's usually layers back a different experience. And so I really love to coach people on that, is that you can change that legacy. You can create something new in you as long as you go back and identify those emotions that were created long before this experience.
Yeah, I completely agree. My Samuel Knickerbocker brand, I'm splitting up my brand. I guess I haven't told people that yet. I'm splitting up my brand. So it's Fuel Your Legacy will be one brand. That's going to be more the financial and the business growth side of things. And then the Samuel Knickerbocker brand, my tagline is identify your identity. And I think it's so crucial that we get to the point where we understand who we are. And once we understand who we are, then we actually know what we can go create. We believe more in ourselves. We believe in confidently that this is who I am. We can, the naysayers seem to not be an issue once you know who you are and you're confident in that. So anyway, I think it really does start with identifying who you are. So how can we, if we wanted to be coached by you, if we want to just interact with you, follow you, like where do we get access to Talesha?
So you can reach me on all the social media sites, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest even, and then also through my website, fostervitality.com.
Okay, and I've been to that website. It's pretty cool. Her husband's a website designer, so she's kind of like a cheater, but no.
Kind of a cheater.
No, it's awesome. I think that's great. Like maximize everybody's skills around you, and if you can pay them with things other than money, then that's great.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, no, just make good dinners, right?
Make good dinners, yep.
That's awesome. So do you have a blog? Do you have somewhere where you're constantly putting out content outside of social media? Or I say social media, Facebook and Instagram is basically like social media. I guess Pinterest.
Yes, on my blog I do. I have content that I'm putting out there as much as 3 times a week.
Okay, and your blog is on the Foster Vitality?
On my website.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. So this next section, one of my favorites, it's called Legacy on Rapid Fire. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you don't know the questions yet. I'm looking for like a 1-word or 1 sentence answer. Okay. So not too long, but I know it's hard when you get excited, but try and keep it short here.
Rein it in.
I know. The funny thing is, I always say that to people, and then I end up talking about what they said, and it ends up longer. Not always, but sometimes. Okay, so first question. What do you think at this point, what's holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy?
Honestly, it's just that confidence in myself. I'm at that point where I'm growing my business again, and it's always scary to go to that next level. And so I'm currently working on my meditations and seeing who I am.
Awesome. And what do you think the hardest thing you've ever accomplished in life has been?
Having children and getting over grief.
Okay. They're both just as hard, right?
Yeah.
What do you think the greatest success at this point in your life has been?
Honestly, healing my own life.
Okay. And what is one of your secrets that contributes most to your success outside of meditation and visualization?
Communication.
Okay. And what books, maybe 2 or 3 books, would you recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience, and why?
Okay. Feelings Buried Alive Never Die, because it gives you an inside look about what's going on with you. And also Marie Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, because it creates another element about how our outside world reflects our inside world. And I am a big influential, I will always talk about how we need to clean out the junk in our internal life and our external life. And then also Present Over Perfect, because a lot of people get in that perfectionism mode, even if they don't think they are, but their life has to look a certain way, and you get caught up in that cycle of going and doing and never slowing down and connecting to who you are. And that book does a great job about reflection and figuring out what's going on inside for you.
Awesome. Love it. And we did a book review on Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't ever read that book until you had recommended it. And it's funny, every once in a while you read a book and you're like, I've been telling people this for so long. How did they read my thoughts, right? Because some things are just true, regardless of where they come from. They're just true. So I love that book. I'll have to read the other two as well. I haven't read those yet. But all the links to those will be in the show notes there if you want to go grab them from Amazon or Audible or wherever. And we'll throw some links in there, plus links to all of her websites and Instagram and Facebook and places to reach her. So this is my final question, my favorite question of the whole episode. Okay. Did you listen to any of the other episodes? Did you cheat?
I did.
You know what this question is? She's a cheater. That's okay. It's okay.
I just love your content. I couldn't not listen to it.
I know. I'm just, once you start, you never go back. That's what they say, right?
Yes.
So here's the final question. We're going to pretend that you're dead, okay? Mm-hmm. And that your great-great-great-great-grandchildren, 6 generations from now, they're sitting around the kitchen table and they're discussing your life. They're talking about your legacy. What do you want them to be saying about your legacy 6 generations from now?
I want them to be saying about my legacy that grandma never gave up and she pursued her dreams. And because she did that, I can do whatever I decide I want to do on this earth. That
is awesome.
Yes.
Not just your grandchildren. Hopefully everybody gets that message.
Hopefully everyone. Yes.
Of importance and meaning. So thank you so much. And is there anything that you wanted to cover today that you didn't get to cover?
No, I think this was great. I'm so grateful for this opportunity and that we got to discuss and share with people all of these things. I think there's a lot of truth in there. And even if, people haven't experienced grief like I have, we all have experienced something hard. And at the end of the day, you get to decide what you do with it.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And just before we go, I need to make sure you guys are aware we are counting down at this point. Today, I believe, is October 6th. Let me just double check my calendar. Nope, I lied. It's October 4th is today. But if you want access to the Strengthen Your World experience happening on 18th and 19th in Sandy, Utah, please just reach out and get you a massive discount. I'd love to help you get there. It changed a lot of things in my wife and I's relationship. And she kind of touched on it today, but the masculine and feminine energy, that's what this whole thing is about. It's definitely best to experience with somebody that is important to you, that you can kind of work through. But on the other hand, we're going to mix you up so you're not there with people that you know, so you meet new people and get to experience life with new people and build stronger relationships. So super excited about that. Go ahead and text 385-263-7699. Just text the code either SYW for Strengthen Your World, or you can just text Strengthen Your World, and I will reach out to you and help you get registered for that with my speaker discount. So it's pretty good. It's going to be awesome. But super excited for that, and we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.